Hello friends, welcome back to Brews with Ben. This is the next in our style series, and for this episode we're going to be talking about Oktoberfest beers. I've got my friend Nick Kiger here with me.
How's it going?
Nick and I went to college together at Otterbein, and when I mentioned that I was going to be doing a show on Oktoberfest beers, he said, you know what, you need a German with you to do Oktoberfest, and couldn't be more true. So Nick, you do a lot of athletic endeavors, right? Triathlons, long distance running. How does that vibe with beer?
Well, I usually tell people that I run so I can drink beer. And, you know, there actually have been some studies that dark beer after a run actually helps in recovery. And those are studies that I don't usually look for more information on. I just read the study and I accept it for as it is.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I want someone to tell me that drinking a beer after I run is good for me.
Yeah, definitely. I know in my own personal diet, I don't eat a lot of carbs. I drink my carbs.
Sure.
So I don't eat a lot of bread and pasta because I know I'm going to be getting those carbs through the beer that I'm going to have later.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, sometimes, and you know, we're actually seeing some breweries are brewing beer marketed to runners.
Yeah.
And to be a refreshing drink after a long run. I can't say that I really care for a lot of those.
Yeah.
You know, I tend to choose what I like. But there's some small part of the market out there that says people run, they like to drink, and we're going to market a beer to them.
Well, I think Michelob Ultra is a really good example. Their whole ad campaign is toward athletes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think like Land Grant has a beer out there called 13.1 that is made to drink after you run as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Definitely a new market and a twist for breweries. So let's get into a little more about Oktoberfest as a style. So the first Oktoberfest, this first celebration happened in 1810 in Munich, right?
Yeah.
And it was to celebrate the marriage of Crown Prince Ludwig of Bavaria to, I got to check my notes here, Princess Theresa von Sachsen-Hildburghausen.
Pretty good.
Thank you. Yeah, my German pronunciation from college coming back. So it was a 5-day party. Everyone was invited, royalty and peasants. And every year after that, they continued to have this party. And it's really come to be a celebration of German culture. And now it's huge. Millions of people from all around the world travel to Munich to go to Oktoberfest and celebrate it there.
2 weeks long now, I think.
Yeah.
And lots of beers consumed.
Yeah.
And from what I've never been, it's one of the things I've always wanted to do. But I also understand it's very family friendly. At Oktoberfest in Munich, and I know we think how much beer is being consumed, but there are Ferris wheels and rides and things for kids to do. I'm a father, so I think about that.
Yeah, me too.
So,
definitely.
If people are thinking about going, I plan to take my family there someday, and
that would be wonderful.
I hear good things about it being good for families.
So we were just talking about the style of beer that's served at Oktoberfest has changed over the centuries. And it started, you said, as a dunkel?
Yeah, so the first, I believe the first Oktoberfest beer was a dunkel, which is a pretty dark and heavy beer, which I actually enjoy.
Me too.
But it has evolved, I think, as people's sensibilities have changed. Being able to drink more of it as it lightens up a little bit, as you go. And so now it's much lighter. And then as we in the United States have adopted liking to drink Oktoberfest, we consume a different style as well than both that original Oktoberfest and even in some cases what is served at Oktoberfest in Munich.
Yeah, what we think of here in America as an Oktoberfest is really what they would call in Germany a Märzen.
Right.
Or March, right? So this was a darker beer, and a little lower ABV than what they're serving at Oktoberfest now. What they're serving now is lighter, closer to a German Pilsner, And that started to become popular in the 20th century when lighter beers were becoming popular all over the world.
Right.
So to appeal to their customers, the breweries that serve at Oktoberfest started serving this lighter beer and still do. So if you're an American going there, you might not recognize that being an Oktoberfest beer. Now, to get that name, though, the breweries have to meet some pretty strict stipulations, right?
That's right. So to be served at Oktoberfest in Munich, there are a few rules. One is that the brewery itself, brewing the beer has to be brewed within the city limits of Munich.
Yeah.
So there are actually a lot of Bavarian beers out there that aren't brewed within the city of Munich, so they're not served at Oktoberfest. And so you'll see them carry the name Fest beer a lot of times. So they won't even call themselves an Oktoberfest, even though they're brewed in the same style. So that's the first rule. The second rule is that the beers brewed for Oktoberfest have to follow 1516 German purity law, which means that you can only use water, hops, and barley to brew your beer, and yeast. Although if you look at the original law, yeast isn't mentioned because they didn't know that yeast existed yet.
Right.
But now that gets added to
It was that wonderful miracle of fermentation.
Yes, that's right.
So you couldn't add fruit, you couldn't add other herbs.
Right.
Okay.
That's it. And I think we'll taste it when we drink the one of the beers that is served at Oktoberfest. I think we'll be able to tell that it was brewed in that way. I mean, they actually get an exceptional amount of flavor out of that beer, even though they're not adding a lot into it, which to me makes it even cooler to drink because
Right.
you know it's these simple ingredients, but they're getting a lot of flavor out of that.
Yeah. Well, let's try some beer.
All right.
Up first is the Hofbräu Oktoberfest. Their website describes this beer as full-bodied, bottom-fermented specialty beer. With its fine hoppy aroma, it's perfect alongside a classic Oktoberfest roasted chicken. All right, so let's take a look. It's almost honey color.
Yeah.
Very light. Not what I would expect from an Oktoberfest beer. You expect that brown or like caramel color. Nice bready smell.
And you can, right after you poured it, I could smell it from over there.
Yeah.
It was on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
It just that just comes to the front.
Highly carbonated, pretty fizzy.
Yep. It's been doing that for a few minutes.
Yeah.
It stays that way.
Yeah, the head didn't remain for very long.
No.
It dissipated pretty quick. Mine's hanging on a little bit. Okay, let's taste. My initial impression is of sweetness.
Yeah, I think to me this beer puts the malt is right in the front.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
think and it hangs throughout the whole taste of the beer. But it's what even before you bring it to your mouth, you know that you're going to get a sweet maltiness.
Yeah.
And then it delivers when it gets there.
Definitely. It does have a bready, biscuity sort of quality to it.
Yeah. And then you do get that bitterness at the end too, just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not overwhelming, but you do get it sort of at the end.
If that weren't there, it would just be syrupy and unpleasant.
Right.
But that bit of dryness and bitterness gets you to take the second sip.
That's right.
And the third
Yeah.
sip and keep going.
That's what I mean. If someone were to tell me this is water, hops, barley, and yeast, I wouldn't expect the complexity that's actually in it.
True.
Yeah.
If you put this in front of me and I hadn't seen the label, I probably would never, not even probably, I never would guess that is an Oktoberfest beer. Because we're so ingrained to think of Oktoberfest as being a dark Märzen that this is completely different.
Yeah. And there is some diversity in in the 6 breweries that they serve, in those beers, in those Oktoberfest beers, there's some diversity there. So, for example, a Polliner, which is one of the other breweries that serves at Oktoberfest in Munich, is darker, and you probably would be able to recognize it as as an Oktoberfest beer. So, if you go to Oktoberfest and this isn't what you enjoy, although they're all brewed, with those same stipulation, with those same parameters.
Right.
There's some diversity there.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention all of these beers, other than mine that we'll drink, are all lagers.
Yeah.
So they don't get a lot of strong yeast character.
Right.
It's very clean, well fermented, not a lot of esters, not a lot of fruitiness coming from the yeast.
Yeah. And speaking of running and drinking beer, so every year at Oktoberfest in Columbus, they have a 4-miler, which I ran, and this is the beer that I got. Right, they give you get a free beer and a sausage as part of your race entry, and this is the beer that I drank after that run.
Nice.
And it was refreshing. It was one of those that if you're thirsty, this is one of those beers that you can drink and it could actually quench your thirst. There's other beers that don't do that. This is one that to me it did.
You wouldn't want to end your run with a Russian Imperial Stout or a barley wine or something like that. This would be good.
Yeah.
And I think this, if you like Budweiser and Coors and you like those big lager beers, you would really enjoy this beer.
Right.
I think it has a lot more flavor than those. So this might be a good gateway from like big beer into smaller craft beers.
Yeah, well, and if you think about being at Oktoberfest and you're outside, right? You're in this festive atmosphere. You're surrounded by people. It's hot. You're sweaty. You just want something to cool you down. This is probably one of the ones you're going to go to, and then you can have your pretzel or your roast chicken. Apparently,
it definitely makes sense that they would go from a darker beer toward a lighter beer over the years.
Yeah, and especially in that sort of atmosphere where it's and again at a giant party, you want to be able to drink a lot of beers. So
yes. Yeah, I like this beer a lot. This Oktoberfest is from Great Lakes Brewing Company. They say, Prost! Our take on this classic German style is a celebration of maltiness, packed with rustic, autumnal flavors to put a little more oomph into your papa. Uber smooth, with vibrant malt flavors and a festive flourish of noble hops. Lederhosen not included. So first impression, this is darker.
Right.
How would you describe this? It's not quite a caramel color. I'm holding it up to the light.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think now we're getting closer to what most people think of when they think of an Oktoberfest. Right? Yeah.
And even on the bottle, Great Lakes has this described as a Märzen-style lager.
That's right. And most breweries will differentiate because, again, that whole technicality of being an Oktoberfest. You'll even see many that will call their Oktoberfest with a C instead of Oktoberfest with a K.
Right.
These cheat. But then they do tell you in the description what you're actually drinking. But so that's what this is. And I think the color, again, it brings you into the fall, right? And it has that.
Right, sort of like the changing leaves, those colors that you get in the fall.
Right. You're not quite to a caramel. You're right. You're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But we'll see if that comes out in what we taste, I guess. Right?
Yeah. In the smell, I get more of that caramel.
Yeah.
So it's not like the flaky bread sort of smell. It's a little sweeter smell.
Yeah, you're definitely. I think you're smelling the sweetness is coming way more in the smell of this one than the Hofbrau. And I think that's reflected in you're seeing it and you're expecting it to smell that way, and then
That's a good point too, right? Yeah. The drinking process is nose, eyes, mouth combined, all of that together. Okay. I have to admit that's my second sip. It still has that sweetness like the Hofbrau had underneath, but I think you get a little more bitterness.
Yeah. So to me, the first thing I thought was that the malt wasn't as biting at the beginning of this one. It's there, but it kind of eases onto your tongue a little bit. And then the bitterness comes and then it fades. Where in the Hofbrau, you got it at the end and it was sort of the end to your drink.
Yeah, it's sort of in the middle on this one. I do get some caramel flavors. I do get some bready, biscuity flavors. And I want to be clear about bitterness. This is not an IPA. So like the bitterness we're talking about is a very slight bitterness compared to what most Americans are used to with IPAs and double IPAs and things like that.
And I think the best way to talk about bitterness when you're talking about Oktoberfest beers is compared to other Oktoberfest beers.
Right. Well, that's one of the things I love about the show is I get to try all of these different beers within the same style right next to each other.
Yeah.
Just after each other. And then you really pick up on the subtle qualities that make each one different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the really interesting thing about Oktoberfest beers is because of the evolution of what an Oktoberfest beer was and what it became, the category itself is really diverse. So you think about IPAs and all the things that go into IPAs, right, and what make them unique and interesting. And then you look at an Oktoberfest and you have sort of these simple guidelines and then this sort of diversity within a more simple way of brewing a beer, which is, again, something I appreciate about an Oktoberfest beer or a Marzen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, by changing how long the malt is kilned, all of these things, the proportions of different malts that you use, you can change the beer quite a bit.
Yeah.
Even changing the temperature at which you malt the grains is going to change the sweetness and everything else. So, yeah, there's that expertise in the process that's required when you set these limitations on yourself as a brewer.
Yeah.
I have to say, I always enjoy Great Lakes.
Yeah.
They put out good beer.
They do. And when I was looking sort of into what we could try as part of this, Great Lakes consistently came at the top of lists of good Oktoberfest beers, which is great because they're a regional beer to where we are. It's brewed in Cleveland. But a thing I read is that Germans who want an Oktoberfest beer and they get a Great Lakes, they like it, which I think says something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think there are similarities between the flavor of this and the fest beer, the Hofbrau that we had, and I can see that. If you had this apart from the Hofbrau, like a week later or something, you would pick up those similarities and appreciate them.
Yep. And there are, so like I was saying, when we had the Hofbrau, there's diversity within those 6 beers that are served at Oktoberfest.
Right.
And some of them look more close to what we're drinking now. And so, without having it here to compare, I would say that this probably gets pretty close to one of those more light, darker styles of actual Oktoberfest beer that you can get in Munich.
Great. Our next Oktoberfest is from Combustion Brewery right here in my hometown of Pickerington. It's a Märzen style beer, 5.3% ABV. And when I picked it up in the tap room, it was described as malty and crisp. All right, so I always want to represent my local brewery, help them out, get their word out there.
Right.
So I picked this up a couple hours ago. Went to the tap room, they poured it for me. I'm seeing a bit of haze. I wonder if that's chill haze or if the beer is hazy.
Yeah, the first thing I noticed about this one was the contrast in the color. When you look at it, there's some lightness there, but there's also darkness.
Right. Whereas the others, they were so clear, the color was consistent
That's
throughout. Right. The way this changes the light, depending on where you're looking at it, it looks light or dark. Very malty, very sweet.
Yeah, this is the sweetest smelling one yet, I would say.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of that is coming from hops. There might be a floral hop note in there, sort of a fruity hop.
It doesn't smell like it's all coming from malt.
No, yeah, there's something else happening there.
Yeah.
That's very different.
Yeah, and there's definitely a hop. There's something there that's has been missing from the other beer so far.
It's much fruitier,
and it lingers. It stays on the tongue the whole time.
Yeah.
That the difference that you can taste in this one, it's still there right now as I'm talking.
Yeah, and it's a little bit yeasty too.
Yeah.
You get a bit of yeast flavor. I don't want to speculate, but I know with these specialty beers, especially something like this that's seasonal, where you have a time limit, the brewers are under a crunch to get it brewed in time and get it into the tap room and into people's hands. And I wonder if that somehow contributed to some of the sort of flavors that we're getting.
Yeah. I was just saying that an Oktoberfest is a seasonal beer within a season, right? So, while you'll see some of the bigger breweries, sell their Oktoberfest for months, really, it's meant to be consumed during the time of Oktoberfest, which is basically September through the beginning of October.
Right.
And so it's not a fall beer because technically it's still summer, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when they start brewing it, you're still in summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that contributes to the diversity of the style, I think. But I think you're right. I mean, I think there's something here that is definitely not in the others. I'll be interested to taste the next one and see how that compares.
Right. I think this is definitely an American take on a German beer. I think the Great Lakes was very close to a true German beer. Yeah. And this is sort of, it's hoppier. It's still crisp. It's still clean. But I think this is the kind of Oktoberfest that would appeal more to American palates.
Yeah.
That are more used to IPAs and pale ales.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you said with the Hofbrau, right, that when you look at it, you wouldn't say this is an Oktoberfest beer. Now, if you were to let me taste it, so if I looked at if I drank this without seeing it, and knowing the name of it, I would not say that I wouldn't guess that this was an Oktoberfest beer from the taste. Right. So kind of the opposite of what we got, right, from the kind of quintessential Oktoberfest beer. Mm-hmm. This doesn't taste immediately like one, but if you spend a little bit of time with it, you can see what they're trying to do. I think you can see what they're trying to do. Yeah. But again, if I was blindfolded and drinking this, I would think you've put some kind of hybrid IPA.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what category would you put this in?
It's like, because technically, right, we're still drinking a lager.
Yes.
And again, while what I guess we're kind of describing as that yeastiness is lingers on the tongue, it's still a crisp beer. Yeah. And so, that's why I was saying, if you spend some time with it, you start to taste that Oktoberfestness. Yeah. In it, but I think your intuition is right that this is brewed to appeal to kind of the American sensibility of wanting to drink a craft, a micro brew. And when we think about microbreweries in this country, we immediately go to the IPA, right?
Yeah.
And
Hops
so-
are king. There's no doubt.
Right, and so you're like you said, not to speculate, but forwarding that into this kind of eases one into coming into a different style.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. Very different.
it is different, but like, if you spend a little time with it, you get it. I mean, I think another thing I would describe about an Oktoberfest beer is a little bit of warmth in it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe your mind is thinking about the fall and that's that time where you're feeling warmth not through the weather but through what you wear and what you drink. To me, as the seasons change, that's when that's when my beers start to get dark. As the year gets closer and closer to winter, my beers get darker and darker.
I do the same thing. I'm a very seasonal drinker.
And so when I think of an Oktoberfest beer, this is really the transition, right, between the summer beers that we've been drinking into the more fall beers, and to me that's when I start drinking porters, and then I'll end up drinking stouts in the winter, right? I want the thickest beer possible. As I'm trying to warm up from shoveling my driveway.
Well, and most of these Oktoberfest beers are 5 to 6%, so they're a little stronger than the light, crisp beers that you would have in the summer.
Yeah, and going back to when we were talking about that, the original Oktoberfest beers were much higher.
Yeah, they were strong.
They're extremely strong, and so again, I don't know if that's. It naturally became maybe a crowd control thing. They're not serving you as much alcohol in every beer that you drink, because I don't think people are thinking about that when they're at Oktoberfest. Like, I can only drink 3 of these, right? Because they're
they're just having fun.
That's right.
So, I'm not sure if that fruitiness I'm getting is from hops or yeast. It could be either, but I suspect with a lager yeast, you shouldn't be getting a lot of those fruity esters.
No.
That usually comes from a higher fermentation temperature. So what I suspect, and this is just a guess, I'd have to ask the guys at Combustion, is that it's coming from the American hops. And there are distinct differences between German hops and American hops.
Right.
Terroir matters. And in the German hops, you get a more earthy, herbal sort of taste. And in a lot of American hops, you get more floral, fruity sort of a taste. And I wonder if then the hops are what are contributing that thing that we notice as being very different.
Well, I mean, I think I keep going back to just the lingering of it, right? The first 2, you tasted it and it went. You tasted the difference and it went away.
Yeah.
This lingers.
Yeah.
What would be really interesting would be to drink a beer that's brewed in accordance with those 15, 16 purity laws, using German hops, and one in those parameters using American hops, and see if we could taste the difference. Now, I don't know if any of these do that, and I'm guessing there's a brewery out there that's doing that.
Oh yeah, and that would be a fun experiment for a home brewer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just kind of see what. Then, I mean, when you're just using those ingredients, you can really taste the difference just in what you're using, right? Just within the simple ingredients that you're using.
Yeah, and that's a good project for any home brewer to do. Brew the same beer twice, but change one thing.
Yeah.
Change one malt or change one hop, and then you can really taste what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Combustion. Up next is Wolf's Ridge Brewing's Oktoberfest, described as a 5.4% fest beer. Steeped in tradition and consumed in celebration, the malty Oktoberfest lager is the perfect beer to herald the onset of autumn. Ours is crisp and highly quaffable. Toasted bread on the nose leads to a slightly sweety malty flavor with just a hint of caramel. Our brewers tend to drink this by the stein, so enjoy this brew before it's gone. So Wolf's Ridge is another local brewery here in Columbus, Ohio. It's dark.
Yeah.
I tried to order these from lightest to darkest, and I think I succeeded. Crystal clear.
Yep. You're not getting the contrast that we saw in the combustion.
Yeah.
There's no haziness here. I think that's probably going to come through in the flavor.
Oh, I get a smoky note.
Yeah, and I think while the description said, was it a hint of caramel?
Yeah.
What I smell is a lot of caramel. I smell the caramel in this.
That's true. The description did say toasted bread, so maybe that's why I have toast on mine. But I definitely get,
This beer smells the best, I will say.
There's that sweetness that we got from the first two.
Yeah.
That hits you right away.
Yeah, and I taste the caramel first. Maybe it's because I just talked about caramel for 30 seconds.
No, I do too.
But
I get it too. Yeah. It's that sort of that roasted, caramely, toasty cookie sort of flavor.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think sometimes when you think about sweetness, people think it's gonna taste like dessert, right? But this is not.
No.
It's there, and I think it's the appropriate amount. It's smooth. It's really nice. It feels great on the tongue.
This, if I had to think of a stereotypical Oktoberfest, this is the flavor.
Yeah.
That I would think of for an American Oktoberfest.
I think so.
Yeah. It's really nice. It's got those dark caramel notes. Even those caramel notes lend toward a dark stone fruit or a dark fruit kind of flavor. Not in a yeast ester kind of way, not in the hops way, but still malty. But there in the background just a little bit.
I think they found really good balance in this with the malt, where it doesn't hit you all at once like the first beer we tried, right?
Yeah.
It just permeates the whole. The whole taste to me. That's where it's coming through. And again, I think from sight to smell to taste, this beer is the most satisfying to me.
Yeah.
Of the ones we've tried so far, just because they've done. I think they've done a good job. Building flavor into this, and it does. You do start to taste fall in this beer.
Yes.
Most certainly.
Well, and I think we Americans, we associate caramel with fall.
Yeah.
And it definitely has that flavor. I think this is driven by the malt.
Yeah.
As
absolutely.
any good German beer should be. Other than Hefeweizen or something like that. But it all comes down to that malt flavor. Do you get any hops at all?
If I do, they are so overshadowed by everything else that you have to be looking for it to find it.
Yeah, there's just enough bitterness there that it's not too sweet.
Yeah.
Kind of like we said about the Hofbrau. But you don't get any sort of vegetal flavor. You don't get any hop flavor right away.
Yeah. And even in the Hofbrau, right, you knew it was distinct. You could taste it. It was subtle, but you could still, it was still there. This, I think you have to say, I'm going to look for hops on this sip, right? To see if it's there. But it's there, and it's there in the sense that it's supposed to be there, but it's not. It's not the focus.
Right. And I think you said it well. They've created this beautiful balance between all the different flavors in there. This is a very impressive beer.
Yeah. I think about Wolf's Ridge, and it's a place that is also known for its food in Columbus, and So I think the complexity that's built into this probably comes from that way of thinking about brewing beer, right? I think you find that when you visit different breweries, if you go into one that and I can't afford to eat at Moose Ridge.
Not very often.
Often it's one of those. It's the anniversary place. Or
whatever. Yeah.
But the way they think about beer and how it goes with food, I think it changes. I mean, I think it affects how the beer is brewed. I will say when I went last year to the tapping of this beer, it was inspired by German food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they served during the tapping and everything. And what I would say is that this beer at that time brought the flavor out of that food. German food isn't known to be the most exciting.
Right.
It's carbs and that's pretty much what you're getting.
And
right?
sausages. It's the worst, right?
It's the worst. I like that. But this beer said take some spätzle with butter and salt and drink this beer, and you're gonna get flavor out of the spätzle.
Right, you're going to notice different things. And I think a good brewer is like an artist, combining all these different colors into something new and something special.
Yeah.
And you have to have a very practiced hand to get just the right combination.
Yeah.
And I think they've done that in this beer.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll just reiterate, I just think it goes back to how they think about when someone will drink a beer. To them, you're going to have a beer with this amazing food that we also have, right? So you're not drinking the beer on its own.
You're thinking beyond the beer itself.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Where in some places where food isn't on the mind, right? Where you might have a different food truck visiting every week or whatever. The beer needs to stand alone, and so you're gonna see some differences. Maybe like with the combustion, we were seeing this beer needs us to stand out, by itself,
right?
And so there needs to be some distinctness there. I don't know if that affected how it tasted and how it ended up and how it fits within this category.
Yeah.
But they were able to do both in this beer, right? To find that balance, but also, it still tastes like an Oktoberfest beer, but one that is a specialty Oktoberfest beer, right? So it goes beyond what this sort of traditional style is, but it stays within the style. And, you find it and you say, okay, I know what Oktoberfest tastes like and I want something a little more. This beer does it, and so
It's Oktoberfest turned up to 11.
Yeah, that's right. Oktoberfest turned up to 11. Oktoberfest, a specialty within the specialty beer. They've done a really good job this year with their Oktoberfest. So I'm glad we had this one.
Yeah. Cheers to you, Wolf's Ridge.
Prost.
The last beer we'll taste is my Mocktoberfest. This was 45% Munich malt, 45% mild malt, 7.5% Cara Munich, 2.5% Melanoidin. I used a third of an ounce of Columbus at 60 minutes and an ounce of Hallertau Mittelfrüh at 20 minutes, and I fermented with US 05. I always have trouble because I always talk to my guests off camera.
Yeah.
And I think, I should have said that on camera. So we were just talking about the clarity of this. Yeah. It's a little bit hazy. I did use gelatin on this. I did cold crash it. I suspect if we give this a week, it's going to be crystal clear.
Yeah.
But I kegged this yesterday. I've been force carving it since then.
Yeah. Going
pretty quickly. It's dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, knowing all that, it's still clear. I mean, knowing all that, it's clear, right?
I would argue it's a little more clear than the combustion.
It is clear that, yeah. And again, there's not even as much haziness in there, even though you just kegged it.
Right. I'll attribute that to the gelatin.
Yeah.
If you're curious about that, I posted that video last week. Go back, have a watch. This is that same beer. So pretty dark. That Munich malt's going to do that. The Care Munich is going to make it darker.
Yeah, I mean, so if you've never had a Dunkel, and you think, let's put ourselves back when the evolution of this beer was happening.
Okay, yeah. Back in Munich in the 19th century.
You might see this as during that sort of transitional period, right? Because you're going from a darker, heavier beer then into this, what we know as October. I mean, you look at you recall back to the Hofbrau and how light that was.
Yeah, yeah.
But, that didn't happen overnight.
Right.
I can imagine this being the look of a beer during that time where sort of the taste and the sensibilities of people going to Oktoberfest were changing.
Yeah.
And this beer saying, oh, yeah, it's a light, to them.
I think you're being very kind and giving me an out. And so I can say, this is a historical Oktoberfest. I didn't completely miss the style when I brewed this. Right. I was definitely intending for a darker. I had a lot of caramel on the nose.
Yeah.
Almost like a creme brulee.
That's. I'm glad you said that because I was trying to pick it out, and it is, just taken with the flame. I think as much, if not more, caramel smell than the Wolf's Ridge.
Yeah.
And sweetness. So that's.
I get a bit of vanillas too. With that creme brulee kind of thing.
Yeah. Sure.
I get even more vanilla on the palate when I taste it.
It's there. I mean, maybe because you said it to me, but it's there, and it's pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
I like it.
Now, this is an ale. This is not a lager, and that's because I wanted to turn it around really quickly.
Yeah.
I brewed this 3 weeks ago, and it fermented for a week and a half, and then went into cold crash, and then I did the gelatin. So this is pretty fast turnaround for a beer.
I think as you get more into it, the vanilla comes out even more.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of what you taste.
Right, and because we're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I suspect if you warmed it up, as it warms, like sitting in a glass, it's going to get even more of those roasted and vanilla flavors. That's going to come through more.
Yeah. But still, I'm tasting Oktoberfest in this.
Good.
To me.
Okay.
I'm tasting Oktoberfest in this, especially at the end of the sip. What you get, you taste the vanilla, but then you get that malt, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for in an Oktoberfest, right? Is the maltiness, the sweet maltiness. So you have kind of just a little bit beyond that with the vanilla taste, and then you're then brought back to that sort of Oktoberfest maltiness that you look for when you drink an Oktoberfest beer.
Yeah, I wonder if I lowered the specialty grains a little bit, the Care Munich and the melanoidin malt, if I could dial that vanilla flavor back.
Yeah. and to me, I wouldn't want you to because
Oh, okay.
Again, like with the Wolf's Ridge, like we said, it's kind of a specialty beer within a specialty beer, without changing the entire taste of what an Oktoberfest is supposed to be, which is hard to do. I mean, because it's so simple, right? An Oktoberfest beer is so simple. So to add a spin to it without changing it completely can be very difficult.
Yeah.
And whether on purpose or by accident, I think you've done it with this. So.
Okay, I'll take it. A win's a win, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm pleased with this beer. I look forward to drinking the rest of it.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's one that you can enjoy you know, over a extended period of time. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's feeling like to me. You know.
Yeah, you could have a couple glasses of it.
Yeah, one you can it's one that you can sip on a little bit, and you know, I think if you drink a lot of beer, you start to learn that when you take the first drink of a beer, you either know if you need to drink it quickly,
Yeah.
before it loses its appeal, excuse me, or if you can savor it a little longer.
Yeah.
And if you drink beer long enough, you start to be able to pick up on that after the first few drinks. This is when I think, you know, if I'm somewhere and I'm having, you know, I'm in conversation and, you know, I'm just holding my beer, this is one that I can keep coming back to.
Okay.
I mean, the Wolf's Ridge was very similar to that.
Yeah.
Where even as it gets a little warm, it still tastes pretty good.
Right.
And I think you get that when you first drink it. So for me, that's a compliment, I think.
All right. So, end of the show. I like to put my guests on the spot.
All right.
So, of these 5, which was your favorite and which was your least favorite?
Okay. So I gotta say my favorite was the Wolf's Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, having consumed a lot of Oktoberfest style beers, the specialty within the specialty of that beer really did something for me.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It stayed true to an Oktoberfest beer with adding just that little something else. So I really enjoyed the Wolf's Ridge.
Nice. Okay. On the other side.
Yeah, least favorite. I mean, I gotta say Combustion. It's a great brewery, and their beers are great. But in this style, the thing that was there that was different changed the beer,
Right.
and that's the only reason why it's my least favorite.
Yeah. So I think my favorite is going to be the Hofbrau because it was so unique, so different. And this time of year, I get burnout on Oktoberfest beers, on that caramely flavor. So to have that and to have the hint of that in a beer that you could have multiple pints of was really nice. My least favorite, again, love you guys at Combustion, but was the Combustion beer. It didn't feel true to style.
Yeah.
That thing we noticed, whether it was the hops or the yeast, set it apart too much, in my opinion, that it became a different style of beer and was no longer truly an Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming, sir.
Yeah, thanks
Really
for having
appreciate you sharing everything you know about this style and liked having you over.
All right.
Come
Prost.
back. Prost.
Yeah.